evening. It's Wednesday, it's around 5 o'clock-ish, and so it is time for Live at 5, our first one of 2024, so Happy New Year! Having a conversation earlier with my mentees, and we were discussing when is it okay to say Happy New Year until. We came to the conclusion that any time in January it is okay to say Happy New Year. So, Happy New Year. Hang on just one sec. So, welcome. Brand new year. Lots of new questions. So, this week, a lot of the questions that I've had are to do with baby size. And these are questions that I do get quite regularly. And these are some of the props that I've been using for some posts that are going to be coming out in a little while about baby size, because so many of us, when we are pregnant, we have these charts and apps and things that tell us the size of our baby compared to fruit and vegetables, which is all wonderful and fun. So one of the questions that I had recently was, how accurate is it? You know, when they say that my baby is the size of a poppy seed or a lemon or a watermelon, you know, is that actually accurate? Well, sort of. What size is a lemon? You know, you can find lemons that are this size and you can find lemons that are bigger and smaller. This is a whopping great pepper, but you can get smaller ones or bigger ones. So, you know, nature has got variety, and actually that's a really good thing to remember when we're thinking about the size of our baby, because we are led to believe that we all grow at exactly the same rate, and you know, at week 1 we're this size and week 2 we're this size, and by the time we are born we should be this size. And actually that just isn't true. If you look at a class full of 4-year-olds, for example, and I always use this because I used to be a primary school teacher. When you look at a group of 4-year-olds, you will see that there's huge variety in the shapes and sizes and development of those children. Same goes when you reach puberty as well. So if your children are coming towards puberty, and they're teenagers, there's massive variety. They don't all hit puberty on this day. You know, you've got massive variety between how tall children are, how developed children are. And so we need to remember this when we are working out the size of our growing baby. We don't have a little viewing hatch, so you know, it is impossible for us to tell the size of our baby. Now, the fruit charts are a lovely bit of fun, and it's a great way of sort of having an idea of how big your baby is, especially if you're not really showing yet and you're thinking, is my baby growing in there, and what sort of size is it? So that can be really, really helpful. And a little bit later on as well, when you're thinking, when you are starting to show and you've got a bit of a bump, you start thinking, well, how big is my baby, or what size is my baby actually in there? So it's great as an idea. Now, if you've got an inquiring mind and you're doing things like that, so maybe you're reading books that are saying, this week my baby is doing blah de blah, or this week my baby can hear, or this week my baby is doing lots of stretching, and all of those different things, they're great bits of information. If you've got an inquiring mind, I highly recommend that on top of doing that fun stuff, you do a little bit of inquiring about what's happening in your body right now, the changes that are happening for you physiologically, emotionally, mentally, all of those different things. And then also do a little bit of investigation or fact finding about what your choices and options are for your pregnancy and your labour and your birth, because although it's lovely to find out those fun things, it's also really, really, really in your best interest and your baby's best interest to find out what your choices and options are in terms of your ongoing health, the procedures that might be offered, the screenings that might be offered, the tests that might be offered, and whether they're applicable to you. Because in the same way that we don't all grow at the same rate and we don't all develop at the same rate, there isn't a one size fits all for all of us. So in many places, our care is almost standardized. So we have lots of routine processes, we have lots of best practice sort of pathways, because we are caring for a whole population. But that doesn't necessarily mean that each and everything along the way is going to be in your best interest or your baby's best interest. And so thinking about the growth of your baby and the development of your baby and the changes that are happening in your body as individual is really important. But also then thinking about your journey, your pathway through pregnancy, labour and birth is also individual. So having a routine sort of blanket approach to everything is not necessarily going to be in your best interest. But you won't know unless you do a little bit of fact finding. So that's why you're watching videos like this as well, to get that extra bit of information. But don't just take my word for it. There's plenty of other information out there as well that will be useful for you. So that's our first question. The second question is related to this, and it is to do with scans, because for many of us now this has become a very common practice within our pregnancy. And at the moment it's becoming more and more common. That doesn't mean that it's really good or in everybody's best interest. So thinking about that as a procedure or an intervention or an offering, and as we say with almost every single video I ever make, everything has got benefits and risks. And when we're thinking about scans, we have got benefits. So if we pick up something that could be anomalous, then absolutely that's great, because then we know that we've got things that we can do maybe, or things that we can do to make sure that baby is okay and we are okay. Absolutely fine. But there are risks as well. I'm not going to go into those today, but thinking, you know, there are benefits and risks to everything. And if you're interested in having more information about the benefits and risks of scans, I will do another video about that on another occasion. But just in case you want a little bit of information, this is a fantastic book. And in here, there's a lot of great information from Sarah Buckley about scans, ultrasound scans during pregnancy. So that's a great resource. But the specific question was asking about scan accuracy in terms of growth. Now, lots and lots of people are told that they're having, that their baby is measuring big or small, and that we are then sent off for scans, or suggested that we have more scans to look or monitor the growth of our baby. Now, when it's presented to us, it almost sounds like, well, this is the most accurate way of being able to measure our babies. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. So when we're thinking about using scans to estimate the size of our baby, they're around 70% accurate. Now that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Until you realise that that could be the difference between, let's say, an 8-pound baby and a 10-pound baby, or an 8-pound baby and a 6-pound baby. That's a big margin of error. So we need to remember that if we are being offered extra scans for the size of our baby, that it might not actually be very accurate. The only way to accurately measure a baby is to wait until it's born and then measure it. That is literally the only accurate way of being able to estimate how big or small a baby is going to be. And you will hear lots and lots of stories from lots and lots of parents who've been told that their babies are going to be one weight, and then their babies are born and their babies are a completely different weight. Now that sounds quite, well, that's quite funny, or that's quite interesting, but actually it can be more than that, because if you are being told that you're having a big baby, often there's a lot of sort of fear surrounding big babies. And so a lot of procedures and interventions are likely to be offered if it is thought that you are carrying a bigger baby. Not to mention what's happening in our bodies and minds if we think that we're having a big baby. Most of us think, oh my gosh, how can I birth a big baby? And so that brings in fear to our pregnancy and our labour and our birth. And if you've seen any of my other videos about the hormones that we need to be producing towards the end of pregnancy, towards the when we're going into labour, that's the last thing that we want to be thinking about. But there is also pressure that is likely to come from our caregivers. If they think that we're growing a big baby, they will often suggest an induction of labour, even though that's not evidence-based for big babies. And the pressure is likely to be put on us. And so even if we're not worried about it ourselves, that can cause issues towards the end of pregnancy. Now, a really interesting resource that you might want to have a look at is by Rachel Reed, somebody I mention quite regularly. She did a fantastic blog about the fear of big baby being more of a risk than the actual big baby itself. So when parents or mums go into labour and they have a big baby without anybody predicting that that baby was going to be big, often the labour is very straightforward and there are very few issues. However, if we think that it's going to be a big baby, the pressure, the pathways that are often presented to parents at that point in time have more risk factors associated with them, poorer outcomes, more interventions than the sort of unexpected big baby. And so this blog is really quite interesting, looking at the fear of big baby being actually more of a risk than big babies themselves. So there's lots and lots of information that is out there about the size of babies. But one thing I do want to just go back to is the NICE guidelines. If you are found to have a big baby, they do not recommend an induction of labour for big baby alone. So even though I hear this really regularly as a teacher, parents are being told that they need to have an induction of labour because their baby is on the larger side or they're measuring big, they need to have extra scans, they need to go down the induction of labour pathway, sometimes being offered that earlier than term, or no, at 40 weeks. And so there is a lot of pressure that can come with this idea of a larger baby. So if you're at the point where you're thinking, do we need extra scans? Or if you're being offered extra scans, take a step back and have a little think about the accuracy of those scans, the accuracies of measurements. Are we simply overestimating the size of our baby? Is our baby likely to be a bit bigger because we're a little bit bigger? You know, there are so many different factors. But what I want you to be thinking is, what are my benefits and risks of having that extra scan? What are my benefits and risks of looking at alternatives, thinking about what is right for me? Is it that my baby is larger and that might be exactly what is right for me? And we'll talk about birthing big babies on another occasion. For many, it's okay. Our bodies and our babies are really good at growing to be the right size for us. And But coming back to our benefits and risks, if we're being offered extra scans, we need to be thinking, what are my benefits and risks of having this extra scan? What are my benefits and risks of not having this extra scan? If they're not particularly accurate anyway, is it going to cause more anxiety, or is it going to reassure me? Is it going to change the pathway that I am presented with? Is it going to limit some of my options and my choices? Thinking about all of these things before you get there is a really sensible idea, because although you might be sitting there right now thinking, yeah, this isn't too much of an issue for me, whatever, I don't mind. I like to see my baby, so an extra scan is a bonus. We need to be thinking, is that going to have consequences? Is it going to have repercussions? Is it going to limit my choices and options? Is it going to mean that now I'm going to have more discussions or appointments? Or if you're thinking of having your birth in a particular place, is it going to be more challenging to make sure that that happens? If there is an inkling that maybe baby is on the larger side. So there are lots of things to consider and lots of things to weigh up before you just dive straight in with that extra scan. So those are some of the questions that I've had recently to do with the size of babies and measuring babies and all of those different things. If you've got more questions, please do let me know. If you want more information like this and you're pregnant and you want to get as much information as you can to prepare for your birth in a positive way, however that might happen, check my bio out for my dates of my classes that are coming up. I've got online classes, I've got face-to-face classes, I've got groups, and I've got private classes. Now, one thing I did want to let you know, so for those of you who are living in South Wales, in Carmarthenshire or Pembrokeshire, on Friday I will be joining a whole group of other birth workers in Carmarthen in the Nurture Centre for the birth and breastfeeding group. There's going to be doulas there, breastfeeding support workers. We've got a herbalist and massage, pregnancy massage. We've got pregnancy yoga, all sorts of lovely people that are coming together to share information with pregnant people. So if you are in Carmarthen or in their surrounding area on Friday, that is going to be happening at the Nurture Centre at 1:30 until 3 o'clock on Friday, and we'd love to see you there. There's parking just round the back as well. It is a public parking, so there is a little bit of a charge for it, but it's not very much at all. So come along to that. I'm also going to be starting up pregnancy relaxation classes. So if you would like any more information about that, I've just noticed that the link in my bio isn't working right now, but I will get that hopefully by the time I post this. You will see that the link is there to register your interest and be the first to know when those pregnancy relaxation classes are coming. Those are going to be regular, probably evening classes where you can come along for an hour and a half, have some lovely relaxation, have a little chat about birth, and those are going to be happening in Carmarthen as well. So, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your questions. Please do send in any questions that you've got about pregnancy and labour and birth. You don't have to wait for me to pop the little question up on my story. You can just send them to me via DM or in a comment. You can email me, you can WhatsApp me, get in touch, and then you can find out all about what's going on with birthright hypnobirthing. So thank you very much for joining us. See you soon.